welcome to Teacher Talks at 7. Today we'll be covering an important topic in the teaching world, and that is practical education. First of all, what is practical education? According to Abrahams, Rees and Sharp, practical education involves teaching and learning a concept by manipulating and observing objects. So why is that even important?
Well, Abraham states that the development of practical skills is needed because these skills can be used in higher education settings and in the workplace. There's a plethora of learning theories that highlight the significance of practical education. Let's head over to Meg, who has for many years researched some learning theories. Meg, could you explain to us what these learning theories are about and what they say about practical learning and its benefits?
Thanks, Tan. Gardner defines intelligence as a biopsychological potential to process information that can be activated in a cultural setting to solve problems or create products that are of value in a culture. Research shows that students possess different kinds of minds and therefore learn, remember, perform and understand in different ways. Gardner says that these differences challenge an educational system that assumes that everyone can learn the same materials in the same way and that a uniform, universal measure suffices to test students' learning. Indeed, as currently constituted, our educational system is heavily biased towards linguistic modes of instruction and assessment and, to a somewhat lesser degree, toward logical, quantitative modes as well. Students learn in ways that are indefinably distinctive. The broad spectrum of students, and perhaps the society as a whole, would be better served if disciplines could be presented in a number of ways and learning could be assessed through a variety of means. There are many ways to demonstrate understanding, and it is important to incorporate these intelligences when planning to ensure inclusion for all students, and for students to receive the best possible learning experience. With an understanding of Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, teachers can promote new possibilities for learning with greater emphasis on lifelong learning, which support the development of student skills in creativity and innovation.
What are the actual benefits of his theory?
There are multiple benefits of implementing Gardner's multiple intelligence theory in the classroom. Studies show that many students who perform poorly on traditional tests are turned on to learning when classroom experiences incorporate artistic, athletic, and musical activities. You will provide opportunities for authentic learning based on your students' needs, interests, and talents. The multiple intelligence classroom acts like the real world. The author and the illustrator of a book are equally valuable creators. Students become more active, involved learners. Parent and community involvement in your school may increase. This happens as students demonstrate work before panels and audiences. Activities involving apprenticeship learning bring members of the community into the learning process. David Kolb believes learning is the process whereby knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. Kolb's 4-stage learning cycle shows how experience is translated through reflection into concepts, which in turn are used as guides for active experimentation and the choice of new experiences. Research shows that the benefits of learning through experience can take data and concepts and make them real by applying them to hands-on tasks with real results. As the student interacts with the information, it becomes real to them. Experiential learning enables the student to engage the creative portions of their brains and seek their own unique and most fulfilling solution to a hands-on task. This creativity and the variety of results produced enriches the classroom and society as a whole. Reflection is an integral component of the experiential learning process. By incorporating concrete experiences with abstract concepts and then reflecting on the outcome, students engage more regions of their brain and make true personal connections with the material. They analyse how their actions affected the outcome and how their outcome may have varied from other students. This analysis helps them better understand how the concepts learned can be applied to other varied circumstances. Experiential learning involves trial by error as students engage in hands-on tasks. They find that some approaches work better than others. They discard the methods that don't work, but the act of trying something and then abandoning it, ordinarily considered a mistake, actually becomes a valuable part of the learning process. Thus, students learn to not fear mistakes, but to value them.
Thanks, Meg. That was really insightful. Now I've undertaken some research of my own. First, I want to talk about Honey and Mumford's learning styles. Now, they were inspired by your Kolb's learning theory and used it as a basis to create their own learning styles. You take the learning styles questionnaire, and according to your answers, the questionnaire tells you what kind of learner you are. So there are 4 learning styles according to them. Now, the 2 learning styles most relevant to practical education are the activist and the pragmatist. Those with these types of learning styles require applying theory into games, brainstorming puzzles, and real-world situations. One study used the Honey and Mumford LSQ in their study and concluded that it's important that teachers understand the learning styles of their students. Knowing your students and how they learn can assist teachers in planning and carrying out lessons and changing the environment to better cater for different approaches to learning. Additionally, it can help us differentiate lessons for our students. Let's talk about how Vygotsky views play-based learning, because it does fall under the umbrella term of practical learning. He states that play can assist cognitive development in children, but the play itself can also develop and become more sophisticated over time. Within play, there is a zone of proximal development where adults can provide guidance. According to Vygotsky, there is also purpose in children's play. At the beginning, there is not much purpose, however, children's play does represent real-life situations. An example would be a young child feeding and cradling a doll. Their play might be imaginative, but the action itself must have been observed and learned by the child from a parent. As their play develops, rules are applied to games, showing that children understand social expectations in the adult world. Another point Vygotsky mentions is that imaginary play enables students to develop abstract thought. How does all of this relate to learning? Well, play can showcase what the students understand and what they have learned, and it can also assist in, let's say, thinking outside of the box. That's the type of learning that we want. But who else supports this? Well, Pollitt's study took on a bit of an inquiry-based approach, but the concept of play is still relevant. The study draws attention to the importance of using open-ended questions in a math class and using play as formative assessment. This allows students to explore their answers independently or within a group and be responsible for their own learning and understanding. Students are allowed to show their mathematical understanding without any restrictions, and the result was that teachers could see all these amazing methods that children use to get to the final result. Now let's have a closer look at inquiry-based learning in terms of literacy this time. A great article by Bruce and Wasser brings light to inquiry model for literacy, where the idea is that reading and literacy skills are developed through meaningful activities that include language and social communication, manipulation of small objects, involvement in sophisticated games, and exploration of open questions. The idea is that all learning around text are valuable, not just the text itself. The use of text is still important in this model, however, it does not have much of a priority. Typically, the learning would begin with the text itself, but the model begins with inquiry questions, which leads to activities and social interaction and observation. So yes, this model is quite student-centered, which is what we love, students taking control over their learning. So now let's head over to another researcher who has found some of the difficulties that teachers face in terms of practical education. Hi Sarah, what can you tell us about your research on practical education?
Hi Tam, thanks for having me on Teacher Talks at 7 p.m. Even though there are many positives of practical education, there are some negative impacts as well. Some researchers discuss that students may not have an understanding of the meaning behind what they are doing. For example, during a science experiment, yes, students are physically doing the experiment and they are probably doing it correctly, but they may not understand what the purpose or the meaning is behind it. In one experiment, the researchers found that learning experimental skills seems to be more important than practical education, as practical education will become more relevant in further education as you are learning the relevant skills and practices to suit your actual profession. Likewise, some other researchers claim that whilst practical skills do have great importance when it comes to these skills, there is a lack of knowledge on how to validly assess students. Furthermore, there are a large number of such skills, making it unfeasible to assess all of them summatively within the limited time available in school science. The problem which Knott and Wellington discuss can lead to the assessment being merely a process in which students learn how to gain high marks for summative examinations as opposed to being taught about and having opportunities to develop their practical skills. There are definitely some arguments against learning styles that should be mentioned. Firstly, teachers may focus more on enhancing students' strengths rather than improving weaker areas of their learning. Secondly, some students may blame their failure on the teacher for not adopting teaching practices that suit their preferred learning style. And thirdly, teachers may focus predominantly on only one learning style, therefore disadvantaging those students whom that the learning style does not suit best. Thanks, Tam, back over to you.
Thanks, Sarah. So, as we have just heard, there are many positives of practical education, but there are also some negatives too. I guess in many cases, it would all just come down to the teacher and the students' preferred ways of learning. I hope you all enjoyed this segment of Teacher Talk at 7 p.m.